biggest thing is the ability to make an impact.
From that moment onwards, we moved from being a brand that advertised to a brand that communicated.
We collaborate with our clients, and over time, we try and get them to fire us.
You must have to have really difficult conversations.
I want to see no office wall. I want to see everything covered in ideas.
There's so much data available that you can kind of get dazzled by it. And
What the hell are you doing?
Hello, my name's Katie Sando and welcome to the Marketing Forum podcast, where we learn about the professional world of brilliant marketers, communicators and creatives. In this episode, I am joined by the wonderful Crystal Carter, Senior Digital Strategist at Optix Solutions. Crystal is an absolute font of knowledge on digital strategy. She shares with us insights on loads of things, covering things like funnel marketing, being there for customers at varying stages of the buying process, the value of not building your brand on rented land, and being able to come up with ideas when things don't go the way you expect. Absolutely love talking to Crystal. We can learn so much for her, and I really hope you enjoy this episode.
So thank you very much for joining us. So you are digital strategist, am I right, at Optix Solutions?
Yeah, I'm a senior digital strategist at Optix Solutions. I've been there for a few years now, and I've been online since like 92 and stuff. I think that the Telegraph recently posted something about geriatric millennials. I don't know about the geriatric term, but yeah, I'm an elder millennial, and things, and I've been online for probably since I was about 7 or something, and I remember being at university and spending all my time on the internet, and people telling me that it wasn't what I should be doing with my time. And now it's what I do for my job. So all of those things, sort of come to bear. And yeah, I've been there for a little while, and I do digital strategies for clients and SEO, and I help them to essentially make the most of their online presence.
Cool. Do you sometimes look back at the stuff that used to happen on the internet with a sense of nostalgia? Because that's what I find.
I think sometimes. I think what was it? One thing that was interesting is I was talking to Thomas Haynes, our head of digital, about how back in the day people before people started having Facebook pages like properly, people would have like name, last name, head pub. And then, and it would be like, and people would sort of pretend they were a person and they were actually a pub. And then Facebook had to sort of go through that. And I remember transitioning all those pages
really?
when that happened, for instance. So yeah, it's very interesting. But I think one of the things I found I looked at was way back in the day, like in the sort of early 2000s, like before smartphones were even a thing. You know, people were on dial-up and everything. And I just wondered, and we would wait for so long for the pages to load. But what were we even looking at? There were hardly even any pages if you think about what's online now.
I know. So like, I always wonder, there used to be, we had way back in the day, on our, Windows, I think I used to go on like an encyclopedia that was online. And for some reason, and this was back in the days of like MSN chat rooms were like the only thing. But how did I even discover them? Like, who told me that was a good idea?
Yeah, I remember AOL chat rooms. AOL and what was it? Yeah, the AOL chat. I can't remember. People be like,
and they used to have like administrators in there as well, didn't they? That used to kick people out. What a job! Like, and who
now
were
it's
those
Facebook
guys?
groups.
Exactly. I'm talking of Facebook, you saying about the people used to name their pages wrong. I remember that when Facebook first came out, a friend of mine thought it was specific to his university and that it was just his university that had Facebook. And so then when his sister was like, I'm on Facebook, and he was like, how can you be? You're not at this university. And that's how like little understood a lot of this stuff was, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's evolved. And I think that like, one of the things that's really interesting though is that if as you get experience as a marketer, and as you go through more of these sort of like platform introductions and early adopters and how people use them and how different platforms evolve, you sort of learn the sort of the sequence of events. And the sequence of events is almost always the same, regardless as to which platform you're on. So you have sort of early adopters who are really keen and really interested, and people who are like, what are you talking about? What is this thing? And then after a while, there's a sort of groundswell. So for instance, you saw the same with Instagram. There are a lot of people who got in early on Instagram, and in those early days, the engagement is a lot easier to get. Yeah. So they haven't adjusted the algorithm yet to make it competitive. They just want to get lots of people on the platform. So if you're on there, if you're on a platform early, it's easy to get followers, to get interactions, et cetera. And then as the platform develops and grows, it gets more difficult to get engagement, and the algorithms get more sophisticated, more features get added, and all that sort of stuff. So. And that's the same with TikTok. That's the same with Instagram. That's the same with Clubhouse, with Twitter Spaces, all that sort of stuff. And so, sometimes I sound like an old lady of the internet. I think sometimes when you see how these things evolve, they always evolve in a very similar way. So it's very interesting and very useful to pay attention to it as you go along.
I saw a thing the other day that was talking about Clubhouse, because it was talking about the fact that there's like two strategies you can really use when it comes to things like those kinds of new platforms. You can either allow the youth and the early adopters to grow it, or you can use celebrities and people with big platforms to grow it, like, for example, the Kardashians or Jenners. Right. And they were basically saying that the only way that they believe there to be longevity of a platform is if they let early adopters, so the youth, grow it. And they were saying that the issue with Clubhouse is that they haven't done that, because it's not the youth that are like, this is so cool. It's like your 40-year-old. Right. And so they were basically saying, and I don't know if you've seen the figures, but Clubhouse has massively fallen off a cliff.
Right. Well, Twitter Spaces has evolved, and like Twitter Spaces is everybody's already got Twitter. It takes seconds to just add a Twitter Spaces thing. And when Twitter added their fleets thing, which I'm still like, what is the point of fleets? And they're not any good. Like Instagram stories are good. The like Twitter fleets are lame, but that bar at the top, the notification thing, like I see all of those, and it's just really easy. It's really easy. You can see who's on. You can log in. You can log off. You don't have to get an invite from someone. That sort of thing. And I think also, so I think that they've got competition there that's made it a challenge. And so yeah. And I think that Twitter Spaces also has the advantage of like going straight in on Android and iOS, which Clubhouse was on iOS for a while. But to be honest, I think they left it too long. There were too many people who were on Android, and I kept getting invites, people going, oh,
same, I'm exactly the same. People were sending them to me, and I was like, sorry, darling, I'm on Android.
Yeah, right? Like, I'm not going to spend, £1,000 on a new phone just so I can get a right. And like people who were like digging out old iPads so they could get involved. So yeah, I think Clubhouse is an interesting platform, and I think there's loads of people that I know that really, really love it. I think though, I think also it's just evolving. I think this space is evolving. I think the audio social space is really interesting. Yeah. And I think it's interesting to be able to have those conversations with so many people at once, and to be able to react to certain things. So I think there was a volcano in the Caribbean, and I found out about that through Twitter Spaces. There was like a volcanologist or whatever, talking to someone else, and I was like, oh wow, people are talking about volcanoes here. This is interesting.
Yeah, it is. I definitely think it's so hard, isn't it? Because if I were to have sat down like sort of a year ago and been like, okay, where do I think there's opportunities for a new platform to evolve in a different space? I don't think I would have been like, nobody's doing audio. Right. And yet it's interesting that people, and I do think it's fraught with danger, because how many of us really want to sit on to a self-appointed just having a chat on a Friday night or something. You know, I think, and that's the difficulty. It's where does it sit? Does it sit within community? Does it sit within expertise? Does it sit within? But anyway, I think it's interesting where it's gonna go. Still haven't had any personal experience of it because I'm still on Android. So
well, I'll have to invite you to a Twitter space. I've been thinking of having a go, and I might just call it "I'm trying Twitter Spaces." Anybody else want to try it with me and see what happens?
This is a giant experiment. Yeah, I'm up for that. We can club away from Android and with Android rather.
So that was very on topic.
Yeah, exactly. Talk to me about digital strategy. So the kind of work that you're normally doing, are you doing a lot of work where you're looking at what companies are doing already? Are you helping them kind of reshape something, or are you tend to be building from scratch?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, we have a service that we offer, which is digital strategy, and essentially we will look at every different part of a business's digital presence. So we'll look at your website, we'll look at your social, we'll look at the reviews that you're getting from different people, we'll look at the technical SEO, we'll look at how you're getting involved with sort of listings and local SEO and all of that sort of stuff, and advertising as well, and how your advertising is doing. So I end up writing sort of 100-page tomes on one business or another, and so I had a health recruiter, and I was like an expert on this health recruiter and the health recruitment business, for instance, and then I had another one who was like who is an online like event service, and so same as that. And one of the things that's good about it is that it allows you to get a complete overview of how everything is connected. From a marketer's point of view, from my perspective, it's given me a very well-rounded understanding of the interconnectivity of all of our digital work. So a lot of marketers are siloed. And again, shout out to Thomas Haynes, but he's always very much like we should all have an understanding of everything. And obviously, people will have specialisms. People have things that they're particularly good at. I'm particularly interested in technical SEO. I'm particularly interested in SEO, but I'm a marketer first. So what's important is that you, like, for instance, so your social should work with your website. Your website should work for your social. So for instance, one of the things we often see is people will spend a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort on Facebook, for instance, and they'll spend a lot of time trying to get people to come to their website or whatever. And their website is where the conversion actually happens. So like that's where people buy the thing, or that's where people fill in the lead generation form, or that's where people download the, whatever. And people don't always understand the connection, like the ways that you need to make sure that your website can connect to Facebook. Connecting from Facebook into your website, for instance, they have their own in-app browser. It is incredibly slow. Facebook traffic is like 99% mobile. So if your site isn't optimized for mobile, then essentially you're spending a lot of time, effort, and money sending people to a website that people can't actually get onto. And if your server isn't configured, I've seen other people who are like, yeah, let's do a Facebook campaign. I was like, well, the last time we did a Facebook campaign for you, the server completely crashed. So you did lots of money and lots of time and effort on that particular thing, but your server wasn't up to scratch. So there are things that you can do to make sure that's working well. And yeah, there's lots of different things, but basically they all work in tangent with each other. Your user is engaging with you on multiple channels, multiple platforms. So we think of digital from a sort of SEO first point of view. Like your website is your HQ. That is, there's a saying that Simon Swan is famous for saying, which is don't build your brand on rented land. Your website is your HQ, right? Facebook will change its algorithm. Instagram will change its algorithm. YouTube will change how they're doing this, that, or the other. Google changes around different things, but your website is your website. That's your bit of property on the internet. That's what you control. So you need to make sure that it works for all of your different channels. And your clients, your potential clients, going to engage with you in all of the different ways, but you need to make sure that when they get to the website and their journey through the website, their journey to finding you is consistent and is of good quality, and that's sort of what we do. When I think about when we think about other things we do for clients, we're a very dynamic team, so we we work with what the clients need. So we have a client who wanted to do some video. We have a video studio, so we did them some videos, very high quality and very good. Worked really well with their Facebook campaign that they wanted to do. I had another client who we did their monthly report, and I was like, "Oh, we had the best month for conversions ever." And they were like, "Oh, really? It didn't feel like we had a lot of conversions." I was like, "Well, I mean, it says that you had a lot of conversions. I mean, were they spam or were they whatever?" And they were like, "Oh, I don't know. Was so-and-so on holiday?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, right." so then we had to look at their conversion funnel. So basically, like, what happens after we get the conversion, and how do we make sure that it actually goes through to a place that is useful for the business? Because we're not just doing this for the sake of it. Like, it's not it's not Candy Crush. We're not just collecting points, right? So what we want to make sure that it's working. So we had to look at their whole thing, and we were like, "You need this CRM. This will work really well for you." And then they're flying now. So we don't really work on a sort of cookie cutter basis. We work on exactly what the client needs in order to make sure that they win at the internet. That's essentially like what we're trying to do.
And to be honest, I do think like it has to be like that, doesn't it, really, to be effective? Like, it has to be bespoke and it has to be dynamic, because everybody's business has different needs. Everybody has got different strengths within what they've set up, what content they might have, etc., etc.
Yeah, and their team dynamics, like what they've got in their team.
Yeah, and I massively believe that. I think that experiences marketing is really important, but I don't believe in a cut and paste approach at all, because I think it makes a real difference, the culture of the business that you're in, what's going to work well as a marketer, and how you're going to generate leads. And I think like what skills the team has, you can't go in and say this worked last time, it's going to work here. You have to be able to read like a holistic situation.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same, like what you're saying, like with digital presence, it's about that kind of bespoking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, and so when we talk to clients, like, we look at all of those sorts of things to try to make sure that we've got the right fit for them. So I think we discussed before, like if you think about social media, for instance, like if you don't have a lot of time to be going back and forth talking to people all the time, then you might just want to set up like an automated feed. That's like an automated feed for your blog or something. If you've got loads of really good photography, then there's going to be a whole different set of SEO stuff that you can do, and social stuff that you can do, and outreach stuff that you can do. And if you've got certain products, then that's going to be another thing for you. Depending on what platform you're on, there's certain things that you can do. So all of these things are really important. And yeah, I agree. And experience is really good. Sometimes though, the thing with digital, obviously experience is brilliant and useful and important and great. We're also like working on shifting sands all the time. So the space in which we're working is constantly evolving and changing. Google's constantly making algorithm updates. All of the other platforms are constantly making algorithm updates. If you think about platforms like Facebook Business Manager, if you log in 1 week and take a week off and log back in, they could have changed the entire interface.
I feel like they do that just to mess with everyone.
I don't know. I know. So it's really important to sort of keep on top of those things, so that you can get the best performance.
Yeah.
And also so that you're not wasting money.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things. People are like, "Oh, I served this ad and it made and it got this many impressions and that many likes." And I'm like, "And how much money did it make?"
Yeah.
And it's really just important, like the actual ROIs. It's important to know your ROIs and your KPIs, so that you know if it's actually effective. We always, for an SEO perspective, it's always important to track your changes and to test your changes. So we generally have a sort of briefing in the information, planning what we're going to do, implementing it, and then testing it within the next sort of little while, because sometimes you need to roll it back. Sometimes this is going to be a great optimization, and you look at it and you're like, oh, actually this has gone, this hasn't worked the way we expected it to, or okay, this is pretty good, but we should actually add this in, that sort of thing. Like if I talk a lot about schema markup. I'm a big fan of schema markup and structured data. And there was one client that I had where, we'd implemented the important schema markup for their particular niche. So they're a recruiter, and we added in the recruitment things, and that got them onto Google for Jobs, which was great. But I wasn't seeing the impressions that I exactly wanted, and so I did another round of optimizations where we added in breadcrumbs, for instance, and breadcrumb schema to the site, and we saw a massive uplift in impressions, as expected, and all green arrows, which is what I aim for. So yeah, I think it's just important to follow, to evidence and to track what you're doing to make sure that you're getting the impact you want.
Because it's so difficult to stay up to date. So a lot of, I think particularly in the sort of Southwest region, a lot of us are working in micro, medium-sized businesses, maybe large. So marketing teams are small.
Yeah.
And you are sometimes a marketing manager with no team. You're managing processes, you're not managing people, for example.
Yeah.
In that instance, in my view, I always think digital is one of the better things. So not all digital. I'm not saying like hand over the reins to your website sort of thing, but right. I mean, so a lot of digital outreach. I think if you don't outsource it, then the problem that you've got is how do you stay up to date? Because you're also dealing with all the flying parts and the politics of being inside a business, etc.
Right.
Would you agree with that? Or do you think, I mean, obviously it depends on the circumstances, but in the main, how could you stay up to date in a small marketing team?
Right. So this is a challenge that I faced as well. So in my career, I've worked in various different organizations. I worked for the city council. I worked for a multinational corporation. I worked for a smaller multinational corporation. I worked for a sort of very small business where literally like my manager, where I was working in the sort of the office. The home office sort of space with my manager, and her husband did the accounts, and they had their dog Bob was our other. I mean, it was a wonderful job. I really enjoyed it, and we were working with clients all over the world. Yeah. But like the office was, it was exactly. We had lovely lunches.
If they started having a dispute, you'd just be like, "I'm just going to use the bathroom a second and drive home."
So I've worked in various different spaces, and in those spaces, it can be a challenge as a marketer because marketing can be sort of it can be the hero, it can also be the villain sometimes. So people go, "Oh, that thing went great," and you go, "Yeah, that was the marketing." And they go, "No, it was sales," and you go, "Well, no, it was the marketing. Really, we did this thing. It was really good." Or they say, "Oh, the thing's not working. Oh, it must be the marketing. The marketing." I know. So things can sometimes be a challenge for marketers. Which again was the reason why it's really, really important to be able to evidence what you've done. But with regards to keeping up to date, I would say like get into networks. So the network that you've got is really, really great. Other things like and also there's Facebook groups and stuff that are really, really valuable, and Twitter groups and LinkedIn groups. So I'm in a Southwest Women in Business group. I'm in Women in Technical SEO. There's also, like, for instance, if you do WordPress, then they're like Elementor and Builder Beaver, which are both like WordPress themes. They have their own Facebook groups. There's also like a social media, I think there's like a social media managers Facebook group, things like that. But like get in those groups, and get involved because you can ask questions, you can get help, and also you can sort of get support when you're having challenges, or if you don't know how to present the evidence, for instance, of the different thing that you did, and also you can sort of be ahead of trends, because sometimes if you're on your own, it's difficult to tell, if if the impact of your like Facebook organic has gone down and you don't know why, or suddenly you've seen a surge in like traffic from a certain thing, or suddenly there's or you're not quite sure how to deal with this like new feature on Instagram or whatever it may be. Or even things with print marketing, if you're trying to figure out like, should I advertise with these people or should I advertise with those people? You can go on these forums, and like sometimes there'll be somebody who's already beat you to the punch, and they're going, "What is this thing that I keep seeing?" And you can have those discussions. And I think it's been incredibly useful for me to be involved with these things, and it helps you to accelerate your learning, and also helps you to do a better job for your team. So yeah, and I also I've recently, so this is my sort of rookie year as a sort of conference speaker, and I've had the pleasure of speaking at quite a lot of really, really good conferences across the UK and in the US as well. Well, virtually in the US. Nobody's flown me to Chicago or anything.
Good time.
Yeah, and it's really, really good to go to those events and to hear from different marketers and engage with different marketers. Because every single time I go to one of those events, I learn something new. Yeah. And there's other virtual events. So Google I/O is this week, and I went to that, and I picked up a bunch of tips from there. I've got a friend who is building a new app, and they were going to do it as a traditional app, but she's decided to do it as a progressive web app. And I went to Google I/O, and they have this sort of video game style conference co-space, so you can sort of wander around with your little like Sims sort of avatar person. And I literally sat at this thing, and I was like, "Hey there, Google developers! Like, can we put a progressive web app in the App Store?" And they were like, "Yes." And I was like, "Great!" And so I told my friend, I was like, "Oh, did you know that you can do this?" Because I literally just asked Google, "Can we do this?" And so I think that if you've got a particular platform that you're using, or your particular tools that you're using, get involved with those things. So Shopify, for instance, has loads of Shopify training, and they've got their Shopify forum, which is really
HubSpot have got their own forum.
Exactly, HubSpot have their own forums. They've got their own training. They've got meetups. They have all of those sorts of things. If you're using those tools, get involved with other people that are using those tools. Yeah. And you can dip in and out of it, but make sure that you've got your toe in the water at least, so that if you do run into any sort of challenges, you know where to go.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a massive believer in the informal learning process, and having that network around you, because in the main marketing, comms, digital people, we're pretty friendly folk. Like, we'll help each other out, won't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll get an invoice afterwards, but it'll come across as nice at the time. I really want to pick up on your point as well about marketers being the villain in businesses. Because absolutely. So even this week, I had a conversation actually with a client of mine where they said to me something like, I can't remember what we were talking about, and they just said, something about like, "Oh, sorry that there was this difficult conversation." And I just said, "Oh my God, I didn't even notice. Like, I didn't think it was a difficult conversation." And I just said, absolutely. I think most marketers are accustomed now within a business or an organization, particularly sort of in-house as opposed to like agency side, whereby operational people or whatever, leadership people, a group of people will always be, what are marketing and sales doing about this? What are marketing doing? Like, where are marketing in this? I think we're accustomed to being, you said about being the hero. I haven't really been inside an organization where marketing is the hero. But mostly, it's seen as a challenge. It's seen as difficult. It's seen as solely responsible for lead generation and awareness. And, and I think we have a brand issue with marketing, and we need to do a big education piece. But yeah, I definitely.
I'll tell you a thing that I learned. This is a nugget. You can quote me on this. In marketing, the making a mistake is not a crime. Running out of ideas is a crime. That's the issue. So like, challenges will happen all the time, right? So you'll have a campaign and like it might have an issue or whatever. It might be fantastic or whatever. But what I found is that like if something doesn't go the way you expect it to go, what's really important is to have a plan and to have a next approach. So if you I've been working in marketing for a while, and I love marketing, and I love I love getting the result that you planned, and I love seeing how things respond to different campaigns and all that sort of stuff. I love all of that. But sometimes people have questions for you, and they say, well, why is this, and what about this, and how come this is blah, blah, blah. And people have, and rightfully so, because marketing can be very expensive. Like you can drop thousands and sometimes get like NAFL back. And I've seen that happen. People are like, oh yeah, we ran this print campaign, we got 2 leads, and you're like, okay. What's really important is that you have a next step, and that that you're able to give it another idea. And if somebody comes to you and they go, well, how come this, and what didn't happen, and that sort of thing, and you don't have an answer, that's when you're in trouble. And if you don't have a next step idea, so somebody says, well, how come we didn't get any information for any leads for that print campaign or whatever it is, then it's really important to think about and it's okay also, I've found, to say like, I need to compare the information. So like there's a lot of wheels within wheels. Let me have a look at the different data. So like learning how to interpret data is super important, so important, especially now because there's so many data sets coming in from so many different signals and things. You've got your on-site signals, your off-site signals, and the things that the people you've paid to advertise with or email with or whatever are telling you, and what you can see in your actual analytics.
I know. Cheekily being like 500,000 people reached, and you're like, that's interesting and loud.
Exactly.
But I also think for me, like another element of it as well is considering your in-house team as another audience. And just being like, you know what, I do have a role here in educating, in making sure, you were talking about it before, weren't you, about this connection between everything and not being siloed. And I think that's important as well. Like you have to educate and consult, I guess, in a way with the broader team. So you can say, this is what we're doing. This is why it's really important that ops is part of that, and that the delivery is consistent with what we're saying. And this is where it went wrong, and it was your fault.
I wouldn't go as far as to say it's your fault, but
I do that sometimes.
I know. But I think though that So and also these things are like, if you think about ops and you think about sales and you think about customer service, all of these things are really, really important for websites at the moment and digital at the moment. So for instance, on Google Ads, for shopping, you can now put like your shipping time. So if your shipping team is like off the charts and they're like, we can do this next day, like that is a marketing selling point. That's huge. And I think that what's really important is to be able to celebrate that within the team and to explain to them that like, this is what you guys are doing, like this great work that you're doing. It's making a difference and is really valuable. So you can put that in your shipping information for Google Merchant. You can put that in your on your website as like, and as a banner, like we do next day shipping. We ship worldwide, like that sort of thing. And if you think about someone like Amazon, one of the reasons why people love Amazon is because you can order it on Tuesday and have it on Wednesday. So like you can be that person that forgot your friend's birthday until tomorrow, and you can still be the hero. Like these are the things that make a difference. And like with sales, for instance, sales spend a lot of time talking to customers about that and explaining all the things and answering lots of questions. Well, you can help them you can put the stuff on the website so that people have a question, it's all on the website. And so I think that what's really important is to make sure that you're adding customer value to customers, but also to your team. So, and that's more and more. So Google has something called something that within their quality rater guidelines called expertise, authority, and trust. EAT, expertise, authority, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So expertise is that you know what you're talking about, like, you can demonstrate that with good blogs, good product information, all of that sort of stuff. Authority is that like you are verified by other people. So your quality assessment team that spend all that time getting that award or that iOS certificate or that that certification for that particular product or whatever it is. Thank you guys. Like, thank you so much. That's really, really useful. Thank you for that information. And you can do that and so when you're bringing that, when you're connecting with them and saying, thank you, I value what you're doing, and that we can use this as a marketing selling point, Google are paying attention to that. Additionally, trustworthiness, like if your customer service team are on their, like say you're a tourist business and your customer service are on TripAdvisor and they're replying to customers and they're like, thank you for your feedback, blah, 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 blah. And they're working hard doing all of that stuff. That's really good for your website and for your SEO. So again, like thank them for that and things. I'm a big fan of like just over thanking people for everything they do. But I
think you're right though, because it ties in, and that's I think what's really important is where it goes wrong is where there's this divide between, and I always have to say this, is that like we can't just add marketing and sales onto the side of your company like a boil that nobody wanted. If we do not integrate the two, and we, sales, for example, like you need technical people to be able to deliver sales because people want people with knowledge about what their question is, for example. And I think, it's exactly that, isn't it? It's demonstrating that integration, and it's thanking people, but it's also getting them to see the connection between what they are doing and us getting new customers for them.
Yeah. So I think also like recognizing them and making sure that they understand why they're being recognized. So like I had one team that I worked with. I don't know. I'm tempted to I'm not sure if I should put this on a podcast. So there we go. I used to work at Exeter City Council at the Parks Department. And when I arrived there, I was like, I don't know, 25 or 24 or something like that. And I was this like loud American girl at this, working with a bunch of gardeners.
And
from
Exeter
Devon.
is pretty like, they're quite, I don't know, when I say conservative, I don't mean that politically, but I mean as Exeter in itself is quite conservative, isn't it?
Well, no, I wouldn't say. I think Devon in some ways is. So Exeter is quite Exeter's actually like there's with the university and with the hospital and things. There's quite a lot of input from lots of different people from around the world. So Exeter's an interesting place and things. And I love Exeter and Devon both. But a lot of the gardeners that I was working with, they've been working there for like 20, 30 years, like some of them longer. And they were not interested in lots of new ideas from this random American girl. And things. And so I had to build their trust. And one of the ways I did that was I looked around and they were like, oh, I've been here for this lot, for 20, 30 years. I've been cutting grass since before they had this, that, and the other. And I was like, great. So I looked around and it turns out the Devon County Show had an award for people who'd been working in horticulture for more than 20 years. And I was like, guess what? I've got 30 of those guys. So I got them all awards and they got all dressed up and they went to meet the diocese of the cathedral and they were in the newspaper and they got interviewed by BBC and all of this sort of stuff. And suddenly next week, oh yeah, Crystal, we'll help you with that. No worries. Anything you want. And I was like, great, thanks guys. That's fantastic. And it's actual. And there's marketing value, there's team value, there's the morale, all of this sort of stuff. And I think it's just really important to sort of like try to like big up your fam. We're all doing this stuff together.
And it's like integration, isn't it? Like there's no place for marketing in an ivory tower anymore. Like you have to be on the floor, seeing the people that are doing the delivery, having conversations with them, understanding their processes, how it works, why it's different, why it's better, what needs improvement. And I think it's all of that big whole story. Personally, I think marketers run businesses. And that's why I'm unpopular. I think it's a team effort. I think it's no. what was I going to say to you? I was going to ask you, I saw that you had done a talk, or were doing a talk on why SEO is a strategic priority.
Yes, I did just do a talk on that. Yes.
Cool. And I'm really interested specifically in, I guess, you don't have to deliver your whole talk to us verbatim, although you can, because I'd be impressed if you remembered it all. But I guess around just a little bit more detail then, in terms of in what way you mean that. You mean because of the broader context that we've been talking about?
So SEO is a strategic priority for your business, I think, because as I mentioned, like, your website is your HQ. And when we think about the website, and when we think about how customers understand you, and how customers engage with you, SEO is something that impacts all of the different levels of that engagement. So sometimes when people think about SEO, I've had people go, "Oh yeah, no, we did SEO," and I'm like, "What did you do?" And they say, "Oh, we had some blogs from here." And, like, don't get me wrong, content marketing is extremely important, and a good copywriter can be, gold. Don't get me wrong, that is true. But there are many layers of SEO, and if making sure that people can find you on the internet is a top priority for you, then it will improve lots of different parts of your business. So again, as I was saying about expertise, authority, and trust, that's an SEO segment. So, and that has to do with, making sure that your trust signals and all and your authority and all of that sort of stuff is coming through. So that touches on customer service, that touches on reputation, that touches on accreditations. The other thing is, like, technical side. So I talked about, like, how long it can take to connect between Facebook and your website. Well, page speed is a ranking factor, and also page speed impacts money. I think there's, if people say, "Oh, we've got this video on our website and it's great," and I'm like, "You need to take that video off your website," and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Nobody can see it anyway because it takes too long to load." And also, a lot of people don't have autoplay on their videos, so nobody's seeing that website. But what people are seeing is they're seeing the delay in the video loading, and people are leaving your website. And we see, if you improve, Google has a tool, Test My Site, and you can literally plug in your conversion rates and your average basket value, and they'll tell you how much money you could be making if you improve the speed of your website by XT pounds. And page speed is a ranking factor. If you went to get ahead of your competitors, therefore get more share of, the potential customer base. Like, let's say you're selling vacuum cleaners. There's only going to be so many people looking for vacuum cleaners every month. And if you're further down the list of potential vacuum cleaner people, then you're not gonna make as much money. So you need to make sure that you're hitting all of those things. And again, like, most searches most people go online to find information about products, about services, about everything. And so if you're in a business that is working that is working in the 21st century in which we live, then you need to make sure that that people can find you online. It's like the equivalent of location, and SEO is the linchpin of that.
Yeah.
We do technical SEO. I've been spending a lot of time talking to people about, like, HSTS preload and different server tags and things like that, because I've seen like page speeds improve by 60% by adding these tags. And, like, this is something that you're not gonna just get from just doing a sale or just putting something on TV advertising. And I'm not saying that those aren't good channels, but when people come to your website, they can't actually complete.
Yeah, it's pointless.
Yeah, it's just
if you can't convert because of your issues within your process, or, like you say, within your presence, for whatever reason, then what's the point in generating the leads anyway?
Right. So yeah, and it it gives you data. So you're getting data about, so you can use SEO for keyword research and audience research and analyzing data. So a good SEO is going to be analyzing data from on-site searches and Facebook information and general searches and competitor research and search console and server logs and and pulling all of that data together to give you business insights, and you can use that to make new products for customers that are searching for a thing and not finding it, and you can provide them with that information. Or for pivoting. So for instance, and even just pivoting slightly. So I've had clients who were like, they were like, oh, how come we're not ranking? How come we're not getting more traffic? And I was like, well, you guys are a solicitor and you don't have the word solicitor on your website anywhere. We should probably put the word solicitor on your website. And there we go. Improve that. And we see impact. I get clients who are like, we have too many inquiries. I'm like, that's a good problem to have. Clients who are expanding their teams in order to. So we had one client during the pandemic, and I said to them, hey, I don't know how many people are going to be calling you about questions or queries or whatever. Maybe we should put chat onto the website. And now they've hired people specifically to manage the chat function of their website to make sure, and so their receptionists have been retrained to deal with those functionalities. And it's providing really good customer value for people, and it's also providing them with really good leads and information. So that's this information is something that you can see within the data from SEO. It's also something that you can see by actioning different elements of SEO. So yeah, I think it's a strategic priority because we live in a digital first world.
But so my question for you then around, you say about solicitors and stuff. So sometimes where you have got companies, so law is probably quite a good example, where probably referrals are more prevalent in law than in, and if the value of the project is high, which with law it tends to be, so potentially it's not the same as like a buy now button, for example, on a website, is it? Because the value is so much higher. So in that instance, would you say that you would maybe slightly tweak how they prioritize themselves digitally so that they're more doing the credibility piece than the lead generation piece?
So it's a bit of both.
Right.
So we work with a few law clients, and one of the things that's important, I was talking about expertise, authority, and trust. Law falls into the category of YMYL, your money, your life. So Google has particular expectations for a good quality site in a YMYL category, and these are sites that have information about medical things, have information about law, have information about things that could significantly impact your money or your life. So like if somebody's giving you bad information about what to do after a parking ticket or something, that could impact your life. So it's really important that Google's serving good quality information. And there was a time on the internet where there was just lots of people like, oh, turmeric will cure everything. Yeah, turmeric is good. And it's like, yeah, turmeric is good. It's a good thing, but it's not medicine. And like it's not the same as medicine.
I know. I mean,
So I think with the law, with law, for instance, it's very important that you're able to demonstrate the expertise of your team. So making sure that you've got qualifications, you've got information like their LinkedIn backgrounds and things like that. It's also very good that you're able to demonstrate the authority of your team. So if you're accredited, you're with on different solicitor boards and solicitor groups and things like the Legal 500 and that sort of stuff. It's really important to have have that information very clearly displayed and backed up with the appropriate code, so that the bots can read it in lots of different ways. And it's also good to make sure that you've got lots of trust signals. So if you're a solicitor and you're saying, yeah, we're really good, but your reviews are garbage, it's bad. Like Google can see that. So it's worth investing in time and making sure that your reviews are good. And with regards to leads and stuff, you want to make sure that that people can fill in a lead form. Yes, of course. But there's sometimes opportunities for people to do a sort of project sort of thing, like a sort of, get this form or download this thing on a sort of low
like
level.
A taster.
Yeah, or like get a package for X T amount of pounds or something like that.
Sure.
So I think that you have to make sure and this is the reason why SEO is super important, is because an SEO will be able to tell you like where you need to hit those points, because you cannot say the same kinds of things on one of those websites as you could on like I don't know, a blog about shoes or something. Like if you had a blog about shoes and you're like, oh my God, this is the most amazing shoes in the whole world, like check out these Yeezys, you've never seen anything like it. You can't say that kind of thing on a law blog. You can't be like, this new statute is the most amazing thing, like check it out, it's so incredible, like
regulation is banging.
Right. You can't you need to, you can't have that same kind of energy, because it makes you look less credible.
Sure. And I guess I think the other thing, I suppose, is that the way that you get leads as a solicitor and stuff is different, isn't it? If you're talking about, obviously not if you're looking at the smaller side, but like the big law firm, you're much more likely to take a personal recommendation. And it's not just law firms, it's some of those biggest service providers. So, so I can get why. But I suppose what's important is that it doesn't matter, the digital side of things. I think that's where sometimes it gets confusing. It's just like, it's no excuse to have horrific SEO just because, your traffic isn't automatically going to come through Googling.
Yeah, well, I think that for things like that, those are sort of things that have a longer tail. So
Sure.
Basically, when you think about a client like that, this theme goes for people who are selling like houses or something like that, or something that like costs too much to possibly buy online anyway. And so you have to make sure that you've got sort of lots of stuff that's top of the funnel stuff, so that people know that you're the sort of, I'm waving my hands and no one can see me. But yeah,
we'll put this on YouTube.
No, please don't. I look terrible.
Yeah. So the top of the funnel, Crystal is pointing up.
So yeah, you need to make sure you've got lots of top of the funnel information, so that for people who are trying to figure out what this thing is, why it's important, how it could impact them, that sort of stuff, so that people recognize your expertise, and then you have to be able to make sure that they can convert if they're further along the funnel. So you have to make sure that you've got lots of top of the funnel stuff, and that you've also got a few sort of things. So if you think about like, you might have if you think about like divorce, for instance, if we're sticking in the law area, you might think about like sort of like a question. So people might ask a question like, oh gosh, I can't even think of one now. I don't know. Somebody might ask a general question about a divorce, and then somebody might ask a question like, how much does it cost to get a divorce? Like they might say like, if I get divorced, can I keep the house? Like that's a sort of general sort of question. Like, maybe you can, maybe you can't. In this situation, you could. In that situation, you can't. Then there's a sort of further down the funnel, which is like, how much does a divorce cost? Like we are done. I want a DIVORCE. If I spelled that correctly, that song. The last time I keep telling him to pick up his socks, I'm done. If you're there at that point, and the person who originally said that, oh, can I keep the house? And they read that blog, and then they also come back to you for the how much does it cost? Then you're more likely to convert on that. So it's a question of making sure that you're there for customers at various different stages of their user journey.
I really love the whole funnel marketing. It's really, I find it really useful to think in those terms. But then also John Payne was talking about the flywheel.
Yeah.
And I found that really useful in doing my, like I mentioned to you earlier, the consultation piece around how it all ties together, like sales, marketing, service, delivery. Yeah. You know, I find that much more useful than a funnel, because the funnel does make it look like it's definitely 100% sales and marketing responsibility to get people through it. Whereas the funnel, it does integrate things more clearly.
Yeah, and I think the funnel works with some things. I mean, if you were to think about something about a divorce, like once you've had a divorce, you've kind of like done it or whatever.
You're out.
Right. But what's important is that like people. So, for instance, I had a house, and we were going to redo the house, and the first thing we needed to do was to sort out the loft upstairs so that we could get stuff up there, so that we could shift all the stuff up to the loft, so that we could redo the spare room, and then et cetera, et cetera. We didn't have a ladder, so we got a builder to try to put the ladder on, right? And this is like a half-day job, 200 quid or something. The guy was a nightmare. Didn't work at all. Like, didn't show up. And I was like, "Hey, are you coming?" And he was like, I'm feeling ill." I'm like, "You could have told me. Like, I've been sat here all day." So I was like, "Okay, never mind. I got a different builder, right?" And the different builder came in, sorted it out like in a half a day, which is what I expected. And I was like, "Hey, do you want to help us do the spare room?" In the end, we spent thousands with this builder who we'd originally hired to do this tiny little job. And so if we think about the flywheel, for instance, for the divorce person, the funnel gets you to the divorce. But then after they've done the divorce, you send them a thing like, "Hey, how was it? Was it all right?"
Then you're going to get like probate law from them. Right. They might put their business law with you.
Right. And they'll recommend it to you, like, "Oh, hey," they're like, "Oh, how's everything?" It's like, "Oh, you know what? If you're having trouble, you should talk to, Katie Sando Law. They're fantastic. They're really, really helpful." And, Julie, who I spoke to there, she was just fantastic. Exactly. It worked really well. And so that's that sort of piece. So again, that comes back to the referrals, but like, you don't get the referrals if you don't get the people in the first place. So it's, with the flywheel, it's a question of making sure that people are able to connect with you where they are. So like, if you think about like, social, for instance, it's like a drip thing. So, as you're going through drip feeding, and that's sort of keeping them on the wheel a little bit, so that when they're ready, they know where to find you, and you're there and you're available, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think they can both work. You can have funnels, you can have wheels, and funnels. And like, I don't know, there's probably a marketing ladder somewhere, and maybe a canoe.
I think a marketing canoe could work.
Paddle boards or something.
I definitely feel like we're all on paddle boards because it's really hard and our arms are aching. And, we're talking earlier about the fact that, we're on the burnout scale. We're in the giving up zone in our clothes that need washing.
I think it's been a long pandemic. And sometimes I think about it, and I think we are all descendant from people who survived other pandemics. There have been loads of pandemics over the course of, because at one point, like early days, like lockdown 1, I got quite interested in like amateur epidemiology. I was like studying like the Justinian plague and like
trying to plot the course of the
various outbreaks of like the Spanish, like all these different things. But yeah, we're all descended from people who survived like various different outbreaks. Because if we weren't, like they wouldn't, we wouldn't be here.
We wouldn't be here.
So yeah, and I think that for marketers, like there was definitely a phase where like every marketer I know was working flat out, just making everything. And I think that like things are sort of leveling a little bit, but like there was certainly a phase where I mark out my plans and like, right, we've got all these deliverables for the next 12 months. We're going to roll them out. This is Q1, this is Q2, this is Q3. And like, that's how, normally, you got my spreadsheet, I got my Gantt chart, I'm doing all the things, ticking all the boxes. Then it's like pandemic, boom, not lockdown, boom, lockdown lifted. Like, oh, all of this, like, oh no, not lifted. Like, oh, it's Black Friday. It's not Black Friday. Okay, all right. Like all of that sort of stuff. And so we've had to be more dynamic.
Yeah.
And I think that people have had to balance, what's required, and what we can manage individually, and stuff.
And I think it's hard with marketing, isn't it? Because there's so many. You almost have an endless opportunity to communicate with people, and if you want to meet them where they are, or you want to meet them internationally, and blah 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 blah. I think that's why marketers like you do risk overdoing it, because there's an endless amount of things you could really do.
Yeah, you could always post more.
Exactly. It's not like accountants where you're like, I've done it today, so let's close Excel. Yeah, you know what I mean? No disrespect to accountants. Massive disrespect to accountants. But yeah, so I think, and that's where marketing is difficult. And I think a lot of people who work in marketing have a creative nature in a way, and therefore they probably might have a need to be bouncing ideas. That's something I've had people come to me and say, like, as a freelancer or as a marketing manager in a business, you're suddenly in this position where you're trying to come up with creative ideas and you're on your own, like expecting the cat to come back to you with some kind of great development plan.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I definitely think that we all need a break. I think basically what needs to happen is when the world opens back up, all marketers should be given like a month off.
Do you know what, over Christmas? So it was like Black Friday and I had a bunch of talks and I had a bunch of like things, and over Christmas I downed tools and I just darned socks for like 2 weeks. Literally I went through all my socks and I fixed all my socks, and it is so cathartic to just have something broken and fix it, and then afterwards you've gotten something that's useful, and when you put on that sock you go, this sock doesn't have a hole in it anymore because I fixed it. And I didn't have to go buy extra socks, which is good for the environment. Look at me helping the planet, fixing socks, doing some relaxing activities. And so, yeah, it is very important to take a break. Not everybody needs to get into like darning socks or visible mending. I highly recommend searching hashtag visible mending on Instagram. But yeah, like find something and make sure that you're looking after you, because, and I think the other thing is with marketing, it's really good to be focused on to have clear KPIs. If you have the clear KPIs, then it's easier to be like, we're done now. Like we got that many leads. We increased the click-through rate by X amount. We can move on to something else, and that will roll along. And that's the other thing. Like, so with SEO is like a snowball. So like as you build momentum, so that momentum will grow. So, once you get into the sort of top 3 places for whatever it is you're trying to rank for, that will increase, and if it's good content, and if it's good a website, and if if you're doing, and if you're actually selling something of decent value, then it will continue to do well. There's people who've had featured snippets, for instance, for like 7 years, and as you add more of them to your website just gets more traction and more activity. So it's.
I also like a campaign approach for that reason, because you can be quite project based.
Yeah.
And it means that it's easier to pivot on a project than it is, like you say, like 18 months of campaign strategy. Like, okay, I need to start from again. Whereas if it's like Lewis saying, like, okay, we're going to do a 6-week campaign. These are the KPIs. This is what we're trying to achieve. These are the people that we're going to need. And this is the budget.
Yeah.
It's much easier to manage.
Yeah, and there's a due date. It's like the campaign goes live this day, and the campaign finishes this day. And then we will see, the chips will fall. We will count up our ducats and see how we did. And yeah, I agree that can be useful. It's also campaigns are also really good for focusing the team. So you were talking about like integrating all the different things, and if you're talking to sales and they're like, right, Black Friday, for instance, we got to get our Black Friday stuff together, which, oh my God, if anyone's listening, please start thinking about Black Friday. Like, just like get it sort of like simmering in the background somewhere, so that you're not in like October being like,
tell people to avoid it.
You do?
None of my clients fall into the category of wanting to do anything, but in in general, I'm like, there was a movement last year, I think, away from it, wasn't there?
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people were like, I had people. Like, I saw people online who were like, my client just asked me, like, what are we doing for Black Friday? Like on Friday, like on the Friday. And they were like, we're done. It's done. If you're doing it, it's done. And things. But yeah, I think people should just start thinking about those kind of campaigns, please.
To be fair, that's absolutely true. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, start thinking about what you're going to do for Christmas in July. That's what all the PRs do.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that it's campaigns are really good because they allow you to bring in lots of things from lots of channels all together. It also allows you to sort of focus the team, and it tends to have a lot of planning involved. So they're really good. And I think if you're a junior marketer and you're trying to sort of build some of the trust within the team, for instance, and find your footing, then it can be really, really helpful. And also, like, campaigns help to give your brand a lot more coherence. So if you're using the same campaign materials on Facebook, on Instagram, on your website, on your email newsletter, then it helps people online to see, like, this is what this brand is about. This is what they do. And
you get a deep sense of satisfaction because it all connects. And I think there's something deeply satisfying about that.
Yes, that is true. I agree.
And that's what we need to aim for as marketers, is just personal deep satisfaction.
Yes, absolutely, entirely. Like, there's little green arrows that I talk about, like that, like literally, oh my God, that makes me so happy. So I log on to a client and I'm just like, let me just check these analytics. And it's just like, oh, green arrows. I'm like, yay. I literally do a dance at my desk. And things, and if I look at it and it's just like, the rankings have improved by 15 points. And I'm like, like, that's what I live for. Like, it's, I don't know if that's sad.
No. I think that's what makes it fun, isn't it?
Yeah, precisely. And especially also, I like being right when I'm like, if we do this, I'm telling you, it's going to be brilliant. And then if you do it and then it is brilliant, I'm like, I told you so. Yeah. I told you it would be great. Really great.
I think you're right are a couple of the best words in the English language. You were right. I know.
Right, it's like, say it again. Tell me again.
So I didn't catch the end of that. It was right. Oh dear. Well, I think on that note, thank you so much for joining us to share your knowledge. It's been so great to chat to you and also to hear, some of this detail around it. I think it's been super valuable, and you've given me some nuggets of genius to think about now.
Thank you. That's really kind of you to say. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a real
were
pleasure.
Right, Crystal.
You were right, Katie.
No, stop. Oh, thanks, Crystal.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Marketing Forum podcast. If you are not already, please do like and subscribe. And you can follow us on social media or subscribe to our mailing list to find out more about episodes coming your way soon.